For years, I described what was happening as stress or just hormones or being stretched too thin as a mother and a physician at the same time. None of these were wrong. They were just too small. The language didn't quite fit the actual size of what I was navigating. And so I want to offer you something today that took me a long time to find a more precise frame, one that I think will change how you relate to yourself. There's a theory in psychology called the personal construct theory. It was developed by a psychologist named George Kelly, and it's one of the most useful lenses that I've found for understanding what's happening to moms like myself in perimenopause. Kelly proposed something simple but radical, that we are all, in a sense, scientists, that we each build an internal system of constructs, mental frameworks, that is, to make sense of the world, to predict it, to navigate through it. And they always come in pairs of opposites. These mental frameworks are either safe or dangerous, strong or fragile, capable or overwhelmed, seen or invisible, for example. And they are not random. They are built from our own experience. They're handed to us by our families, our culture, our medical system. They're encoded in what was said about our bodies, our brains, and they're also encoded by what was never said at all. Here's what Kelly also said. All present interpretations are subject to revision. There are always alternative constructs available. We are not locked into the frameworks we inherited. He called this the idea that there's always an alternative way to read what's happening. We are not locked into the frameworks we inherited. A more precise lens is always possible. I want to offer you two new lenses today. And once you see through them, I don't think you'll be able to unsee them. The constructs women were handed around this time of life are imprecise at best, harmful at worst. The dominant story around perimenopause goes something like this. Your body is declining, you're losing hormones, fertility, youth, sharpness. The direction you're moving toward is diminishing. The dominant story around motherhood goes like this. This is the role that defines you. Your needs come second. Struggle is just what it looks like. The direction you're moving towards is endurance. And when both of these constructs are operating at the same time, which for Gen X and millennial mothers, like myself, they often are, you end up with a felt sense of, I am losing myself, and I am not allowed to say so. That is not a personal failure. That's a framework that was never built to hold the actual complexity of what you're navigating. The question Kelly would ask is, what if there was a different way to read this? What if what looks like decline is actually initiation? What if what looks like loss is actually reorganization? That's what the research and the ancient map actually shows us. The neuroscience of perimenopause is less than a decade old, and it changes everything about how we've been reading this transition. Perimenopause is not simply a hormonal event, it is also a neurological one. The brain, specifically the hypothalamus, is running the entire hormonal orchestration. The chemicals it makes, FSH and LH, signal out to the ovaries. The ovaries begin to respond inconsistently. So the brain tries harder. It ramps up. It fluctuates. And this is very much influenced by how regulated our nervous systems are, which can depend on our external and internal life situation. Estrogen is deeply neuroprotective. It regulates serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, the relaxation chemical. It supports sleep architecture, emotional regulation, cognitive clarity. When estrogen becomes erratic, which is the hallmark of early perimenopause, the brain is the first thing to feel it. The anxiety that seems to come from nowhere, the sleep that stops working, the mood that shifts before you can catch it, the brain fog that makes you wonder if something is wrong with you. And this is not only early perimenopause, but lasts until later perimenopause as well. Well, my friend, nothing is wrong with you, as you know. You are just experiencing a brain that is fighting to maintain an equilibrium in the middle of a chemical reorganization. The story, my mind is failing me, is just not right. The more precise story is my brain is adapting under significant demand and it needs more support, not pathologizing. Dr. Lisa Mosconi's research shows that the perimenopausal brain is not shrinking, it is pruning for precision, reallocating resources. This is not a decline, this is specialization. But that's only half the picture because for most of us, this brain reorganization is landing on a nervous system that has already been through something enormous. Again, greatly influenced by external factors in your life and how regulated is your nervous system. The second body of research is one most women have never heard of. It's called matrescence. Matrescence is the developmental passage of becoming a mother, named by the anthropologist Dana Raphael in 1973, and reintroduced to clinical psychology most recently by Dr. Aurelie Athan at Columbia. It is as significant as adolescence, driven by dramatic hormonal and neurobiological shifts, reshaping identity, brain restructuring, relationship changes, and great changes in the sense of self. And like adolescence, it does not resolve quickly. This identity reset is permanent and it takes years to develop, sometimes a decade. I went through it without a name for it. I suspect most of you did too, which means I spent years reading the disorientation of early motherhood as personal inadequacy rather than as a legitimate developmental passage with a biological basis. The voice saying, I should be handling this better. I should be getting the laundry done faster. I should know what my child wants. That was operating where a more accurate story would be I'm in the middle of a huge brain and body reorganization that would have served me so much better. Studies show that the maternal brain actually prunes gray matter during pregnancy, not as a loss, but as a specialization. Social cognition deepens, empathy increases, white matter connectivity grows. The brain that emerges from matrescence is more attuned and more complex than the one that entered it. It is also often more depleted because it has been running on too little sleep, too little support, and no language for what it was actually doing. That depleted, attuned, reorganized nervous system is the one when perimenopause arrives. This is not a coincidence. This is the perfect storm. And this deserves its own map. For women in their late 30s to 50s who are also mothers, these two passages can and often do happen at the same time. Perimenopause doesn't arrive in a quiet, child-free midlife. It arrives on a nervous system already running the full demands of active parenthood. The sleep deprivation of early motherhood, years of chronic cortisol, the identity reset of matrescence that may still be integrating. And neither passage has been adequately named, which means the constructs women are using to interpret what's happening are borrowed from an entirely different, inaccurate map. They're calling it burnout or depression or just aging. Kelly believed that the way we interpret our experiences changes over time as we encounter new events and find more precise language for them. What I've seen in my practice is this: when women finally have words for what they're navigating, when the story shifts from "I'm falling apart" to "I'm in the middle of two simultaneous initiations," something changes, not just in the body, in the relationship to the body. And that change matters enormously. One of the most useful alternative frameworks for understanding the female body and these shifts comes from the practice of menstrual cycle awareness. This was developed by the Red School, Alexander Pope and Shani Hugo Wurlitzer. So grateful for their work. Instead of reading the cycle as something to manage, suppress, or push through, it offers a different frame entirely. Not cycle as disruption, but cycle as intelligence. Not phases as inconveniences, but phases as seasons, each with its own kind of power, each with its own invitation. For example, inner winter is the time of menstruating, and this is the anchor. The invitation is to surrender a bit, get some more rest, not collapse, not absence, just focusing a little more on rest during this time as the source of what's coming next. Then we move to pre-ovulation, inner spring. This is when energy is rising. There's a little bit of tenderness, new ideas form. It's the invitation to cherish yourself as you reemerge, not to rush the reemergence, to witness it. Then we go to ovulation, which is inner summer, in its full expression, a lot more outward energy, the natural time for connection, visibility, and creativity. Finally, we move into inner autumn, when we're sometimes PMSing. This is a great source of heightened intuition and sharpened inner critic. What is working and what isn't working becomes harder to ignore. And the invitation is discernment, not a problem to fix, but information to receive. In perimenopause, when cycles become irregular, this framework adapts. The practice becomes tracking how your body feels each day, not to control it, but to understand it, to live with your cycle, to live with your biology rather than against it or pushing through it. The body hasn't changed. The lens through which you're reading it has. When you track your inner seasons, you stop reading a difficult week as a failure and you start reading it as what it is. You stop pathologizing rest and you start reading it as, for example, winter, menstruation, doing its essential work. At Women's Well, we built a framework for this convergence of active mothering in perimenopause. We use a framework called The Fourfold Way by Angeles Arian, specifically starting with the way of the visionary mother. This holds three things together that medicine rarely holds together at all. First, your body, the actual science, perimenopause as a brain event, matrescence as a developmental passage, the inner seasons as something to navigate intelligently. Your body is not failing you, it is guiding you. The instruction kit came built in. Second, your constructs, the frameworks you've been living inside, your beliefs, and the more precise ones available to you now. These often come by our stories, what physical or mental ailments we have, what struggles we have right now. Our stories guide us to where to start this journey. You have been interpreting this passage, and how you've been interpreting it matters just as much as the passage itself. Kelly was right, it turns out. We are not victims of our past. We are creators of how we construe our future. Third, your sovereignty, your power. The way of the visionary mother is not a woman who has resolved perimenopause. She is a woman who has stopped telling herself she needs to be fixed and started seeing herself as someone in the middle of something real, something significant, and something that has always been navigable with the right map. Kelly described a 3-step process for navigating generally new terrain. First, you slow down and listen. Then you consider your options. You hold multiple ways of reading the situation at once. Then you choose the one that fits best. Then you act from it. You move. First, you slow down and consider your options. You hold multiple ways of reading the situation at once. Then you choose the one that has more precision for you, more dignity, more truth. Then you act from it. You move. So let me offer that to you right now. Slow down with the experience you're having. Take a look. Hold 2 ways of reading it at once. Is it a decline or an initiation? Is it a fragmentation or just a reorganization? Is it the end of who you were or the beginning of who you're becoming? Then choose the one that has the most precision. I made this video because I spent years navigating this without the right language. And language is not a small thing. Language is the difference between seeing yourself as someone who is falling apart and seeing yourself as someone who is in the middle of 2 of the most significant developmental passages of a woman's life, simultaneously, without much of a map. That shift doesn't resolve the symptoms, but it changes who you are while you're in them. And that changes everything about how you move through it. This is the first in a series. We're going deeper into the science, into the practices, into what actually looks like to navigate this with support. The links below will take you to 3 places. We have a free quiz that helps you map where you are in this passage right now. We have a free live weekly masterclass. And we have our summer retreat in June, The Way of the Visionary Mother, which is built around everything we talked about today. You are not too far gone. You are not too complicated. You are not behind. You just need the right map. So do we. Let's do this together.